All right, so I'm ready to start. And welcome everybody. Again, first I want to start with the Chbod Achsania. Thank you, Judy. It's really an amazing thing that you've been doing here. It really gives some focus to the day, and I very much appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else does too. I try to listen to as many as I can, and thank you for recording them. So I'm not able to, I'm able to do it later. So really, thanks a lot. Today I'm going to be talking about Nebi Samuel. The place of Hanavi Shmuel, and notice particularly I did not say the burial place of Hanavi Shmuel. I'm talking here to guides, and I think most of us realize that we're not talking about the Ramah, but we're talking about the Mitzvah. I just want to give 2-minute introduction to this topic. I'm not going to talk about but in general, but just to say something about Kvarim and this whole ta'asiyah of going to Kivrei Tzadikim. I think it's very important, especially in this place, which is I find is very sensitive with a lot of visitors. Now, we know that the whole Tasiyah of going to Kivrei Tzadikim is a very recent phenomenon. Just think of Moshe Rabbeinu, Lo nodam makom kivro. They don't, the Chazal keep telling us, they don't want it to be known because of the fact that they do not want it to become a place of Avodah Zarah. And that's why it's never been known. There are some scholars who believe that it becomes more of an agenda to visit Kivrei Tzadikim when Christianity comes to power, and they're more into it. And as a matter of fact, the very first time that Nebi Samuel is mentioned as the Kever of Shmuel is in the Byzantine times. 6th century Christian scholar mentions the burial of Shmuel Hanavi. I just want to say in general that often, I mean, I have all kinds of population that come, and when I do have people who are Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, you have to be very careful of people's sensitivities. The last thing I want to do is tell somebody, oh, it's nonsense, you're praying in a place that has zero meaning. I'll tell you how I handle it and what I do, and it seems to work very well. When I come to Nebi Samuel, which is easy, someplace it's much harder to do, I simply tell my tourists that I know some of you think this is the place of Shmuel Hanavi. I think it's not. I think it's Mitzvah. However, this is a place where Shmuel Hanavi came to pray. This is a place where the entire country came with him before battle to pray. And as far as I'm concerned, if I can pray in such a place where God listens to Shmuel Hanavi's prayers, it's good enough for me. I don't have to be in a place where he's buried. And I've never had a problem with anybody who was turned off. But you have to be very careful. The one thing I want to just suggest, I did not have the time to put it on my thing, is a wonderful, wonderful piece of paper that I have here.
Ruchama? Hi, sorry to interrupt you. Is there any way you can speak closer to the microphone?
Is it better this way?
A little bit.
Okay. How do I make? I don't know how to make it louder. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's better. That's better. Thank you.
All right. So I have here, there is a very important document. It's Reshimat Atarei Kodesh by Dr. Elchanan Reiner. He has, it's Ktav Yad Parma. It's a manuscript from the 12th century. I got this from Chagia Mitzur. I only have one page. I'm sorry, I did not have a chance to look it up, but it's a fabulous resource to have. And what it is, it gives the names of Atarei Kodesh. Now, this is only in the Galil, the page that I have, but just let me read to you a few things that it says here. For example, Knesset Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai b'Chatzor, Knesset Rabbi Meir b'Tveria, Knesset, not burial place, Knesset Rabbi Yossi Aglili b'Deltaim, Knesset Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai b'Kvar Bar'am. All these places are not burial places, they are Knesset. So in the 12th century, there's a manuscript that lists all these places as Knesset. I got this, by the way, from Chagia Mitzur, who is a fabulous resource for anything in the Galil or anything at all. So that if you want to take this with you, bring it with, show it to your people. It's very helpful in trying to explain that these are very important places, but primarily they're meant to be, to remember the person, to be close to where that person lived, to where he acted. And that is what these places are. They don't necessarily have to be the burial place for us to go and think that we get something significant out of it. So that's it as far as Kvarim go. I'm not going to say anything more about them. And as I said, the assumption of this lecture is we're at the Mitzvah, which most scholars believe that's the case. Now, what we're going to do today is, in a couple of minutes, we're going to start walking, quote unquote, all around the area. We'll start in the south. In the south side, we'll make a circle all around. I'm going to show you pictures that show you the archaeological excavation and different sites that are seen when you come to Nebi Samuel. So when you come there, you'll be able to identify exactly where it was that I was talking about. Now, because it's archaeological excavation, we're walking around. Obviously, it's not going to be in chronological order because that's not how archaeological excavations work. So before we start doing our walking tour around, let me just give you a 2-minute rundown of the timeline of the important events that took place in this particular place. We're starting with Shmuel HaNavi. You're talking over 3,000 years ago. You know, David HaMelech becomes king right after. The first person put in the map. I'm not saying anything else about it now because we're going to be discussing those chapters in great detail later on. Shmuel HaNavi, Beit Rishon is being built shortly after. This community, Nebi Samuel, is a village here, exists the entire time. We'll see some evidence of that soon. It is destroyed, and when it's destroyed by Babel in 586 BCE, remember the Babylonians put in charge Gedaliah ben Achikam. He unfortunately is killed very soon after, and because the Jews who are there are afraid that the king of Babel is going to take it out on them, that they killed his rep, all, including Yahu HaNavi, escaped to Egypt. Gedaliah ben Achikam's place and where he's killed is right here at Mitzpah, same place. And by the total aside, Gedaliah ben Achikam, grandfather's name is Shaphan. Remember Shaphan? It always ties in very well when you're in Ir David. His uncle is Gemariyahu ben Shaphan, who obviously is the next scribe after Shaphan. Very important people, very God-fearing people, and obviously Gedaliah ben Achikam followed Yirmiyahu as well as his uncle and his family. So it's important to remember that. And the fact that he was killed, because of that, of course, we have Tzom Gedalia every year to mourn the end, the literal end of people living here before Galut Bavel. People go to exile, they come back. Nehemiah rebuilds the village, and it continues during Beit Sheni. It comes to prominence during the Greek period, the time of the Maccabees, and we'll talk about that in greater length. And then we're moving on to the Roman period, the destruction of Beit HaMikdash. And at that point, we, the Jews, take a back step. We're no longer the doers in this place. We're not leading battle from this place or praying in this place. And now the Christians and the Muslims are taking over. I already mentioned the fact that in the 6th century, the Christian scholar, I don't know who it is, I don't remember the name, and said this is the burial place of Shmuel, and they built a small monastery in that place. It's not a big village, it's a very small village, and I have to read to you one very funny thing, actually. Al-Muqaddasi, the Jerusalem Arab writer, Muslim writer, in 985 Common Era writes that a certain sultan wants to take over this village. So he asked the people living in there, what's your village like? And listen to the description of the village. Hard is the labor, the profit is low, weeds are all over, almonds are bitter, 1 bushel you sow, 1 bushel you reap. And when he hears it, he says, who the heck needs your village? And he walks away. And it could be that they liked him, they didn't want to take over, but it's not a big place. It becomes a center for pottery making, and it's not so important. It gets into prominence during the Crusader period when they come here, and we'll talk again more about that, so I'm leaving that for later. They build the church, a big fortress, as they do everywhere else, to protect the people who are there. They're kicked out by Salah ad-Din, and when Richard Leinhardt comes back, he does not reconquer this area. It continues to a very minor place, but interestingly enough, at this point in the 1500s, is actually a shul built by Jews at this place, and we have evidence and we have records that every spring they would come to this area to daven, and there was a small shul coexisting during the Ottoman period with the mosque that was here, which was rather ironic that that's what happened. World War I, this place is terribly bombed, the Turks, the British, and the British, after World War I, when they are here, the British mandate, they are the ones that fix it to look the way we do today. So keep that in mind, that you're not looking at such an ancient spot, you're looking, it is ancient, but It's been fixed in modern times. 1948, major battle. Again, we'll talk about it. We lose. 1967, we gain control. And that's a very quick overview of the timeline from Shmuel until today. So now we're ready to actually start to walk around and then to discuss what we're looking at. So let me just move to the next picture.
The things that you mentioned in antiquity, is there no debate about it? It's everyone agrees on this timeline connected to this location?
This is the place known as the Mitzpah, and this is Nebi Samuel. Yeah, this is pretty well it.
Okay.
I said, but people would say it's the Ramah, and that's where Shmuel Hanavi is buried. I'm not going with that, and that would be a whole discussion of a lot of different things. I think Ramah is Aram, which is a bit further north of here, and this is not the place. But there is, not saying everybody agrees, but the vast majority of scholars, this is the timeline. Okay, let's move up to this map. And we're looking at a map the time of the Chashmonaim, Yehuda HaMaccabei. I mentioned, I'm not showing anything, it says that we're going with the archaeology. The reason I'm showing you this first is because at this point we're starting to walk. We're walking towards the western side of the hill. And the first thing we come to is antiquities going back to this time period. So I want to show you first what was here, then we'll look at the actual antiquity site. What we're talking here is one of the major battles that took place between Yehuda Maccabee and the Greeks. Notice here Emmaus, we all know where that is, right near Latrun, and Nicanor and comes here, and Gorgias come. Gorgias is one who's the chief actor here. He goes up this way, notice my arrow, up Highway 443, and he comes here to look for Yehuda. Why here? Modi'in is up here in this area. And of course, Yehuda cannot stay there because there's no way that the Maccabees are able to withstand the great forces of the Greeks with their elephants and everything else. They have a much better place to survive hiding in the hill country, in the caves and the mountains, etc. Yehuda is here, Gorgias knows, and he comes here. Notice Mitzpah is right over here. Yehuda sees him coming, very easy when you're standing at the top to see along 443 people coming up. What he does, he circles around him using Highway 1. He goes all around and he comes back here to Emmaus where the camp is. He overpowers the camp. There are not that many soldiers left there. And as Gorgias' men come back downhill, they see their camp on fire and they total disarray, total victory for this particular battle. Now, the one thing I want you to notice is this very important quote in the book of Maccabees 1. Then they gathered together, we're talking about the army of the Maccabees, Yehuda Maccabee, and went to Mitzpah, opposite Jerusalem. Very important. That's why it's such a crucial place, because Israel formerly had a place of prayer in Mitzpah. So by the time of the Hashmonaim, you're talking 165, 163 BCE, this is already known as a place of prayer. And remember that because it's going to play, again, a very important role later on, and we'll talk about that. Now, what do we see from that time period? Over here, we're looking, as I said, we're starting to walk towards the south. And the first thing we see when we come by is the street and the houses over here. This goes back to the time of the Hashmonaim. It's a beautiful street, it's about 3.5 meters wide. It's very, the quality is high quality construction. Look here at the drainage channel underneath. You can see the houses, 2-story, 1st story, 2nd story. Now, when we found these houses, these doors were not open. They're all locked with huge blocks. Total mystery why, we don't know. Apparently, around the year 100 something BCE, Tav Yochanan Horkanus, the nephew of Yehuda Maccabee, for some reason, this place is deserted. The people leave, they close their doors, they lock up their doors, they build it up, obviously hoping to come back, though I'm going to go into the house in the meantime while they're gone. And they don't come back because these blocks are not removed until we come, the archaeologists come nowadays and remove them. Why? We don't know. But what we do know is that this area is very high quality construction and a lot of industry. Now, this is for guides. You don't need, I did this for tourists actually, to show them what an olive press looks like. We all know this is the first stage where you crush your olives, you make a lot of mush. And then the next stage, what you do is, let me just get rid of this a little bit, sorry. The next thing that you do is you have to squeeze out. You put your beam, bad, therefore the word beit, bad in Hebrew, you put weights here. The important thing there, the only reason I have this whole basket, the whole, shows you how the olives are squeezed in the baskets here, is to show you the axis. This is a very important point, because if it wasn't here, we all know that simply the beam would flip upwards when the weights are down. Why am I showing you this? Because of what we found here. Let me move up to the next picture. Now here I'm showing you from far away what we're going to be looking at to see where we are. This is the southern part, this is the eastern part. So we're southeast of the area. And you can see here this house. We're going to zoom in and look a bit closer at this house, same place, just a little bit closer, and so you can see what's doing. I showed you where the axis was, where the beam was in. This is it right here. This area right over here, that's where the beam was. And this area was an olive press. These two large basins are later. They wouldn't be here because this would interfere with the place where it was, but the area with the Beit Bad dates back to the time of Hashmonaim. And look also the very nice construction. Look at the beautiful stones, hewn stones that form the windows, the doors. This is the second floor, and the street that we saw runs right over here above. Aside from this, we see another very, very nicely done area for storage, either wine or storage of grape juice. Grapes. Actually wine or olive oil. What you're looking here is, this is a cistern, and look at these beautiful little holders. Now, the older ones among the group are going to remember Amatzia. Remember that amazing place, Amatzia, where there were the Amarot Mistor, and how at that point we used to go there and crawl through them before, unfortunately, they closed up. And one of the beautiful rooms there had an installation very much like this, these round places, and notice there's a hole between each one of the holes. Now, I'm sure you all know, but again, let me just repeat because it's very important to understand the holes. When you make pottery, if you want to make pottery with a flat bottom, then you have to make two separate pieces. You make the flat part, and you make the other one, which means it's much more likely to break than if you make it one piece. So if you make it one piece, you cannot make a totally flat bottom. The bottom is rounded, and therefore you can't place it on the floor because it's going to tip over. What you need then is storage places like this with holes like this, where these round bottom large containers are placed. And we also have pictures in ships, for example, where there's very long wooden beams with holes in the middle, where these pots would be placed, and then they were able to put ropes through the sides where the handles were and hold it upright. So this is a very important storage place. Now, there's something else about this place, and this I'm telling you I don't understand, but I want to tell you that it's also a very good tip if you ever do go there. The person running this site is a man called Amos. I forget his last name, sorry. And I have his number. I'll be happy to send it to whoever wants after the thing. He runs the place for the Ganim. Very knowledgeable, very nice, extremely helpful. He told me that when he saw this area, he had a feeling there was something more involved. So he called one of the wineries, and he asked them to send a wine expert. They did. And this wine expert told him that he thinks that this is something to do with the, refining or the mixing of white wine. What it is, he didn't know. And I certainly don't know enough about winemaking to be able to tell you, but it has something to do to filter white wine. How, I don't know, but keep that in mind. You go there, maybe you can figure it out and then let all the rest of us know. So we know that this is under Hashmonaim. You're talking 2nd century BCE, 1st and 2nd century, and it's a very, very important village and a lot of industry and very high quality construction. We keep walking along the perimeter, And what we're going to see is not this picture. This is a very picture by Gustave Doré of the Crusaders when they reached Jerusalem. Crusader movement, 1099, Common Era. You all know the story. They promise the world, you know, get jail, release your sins, whatever stuff you get there is yours to keep. And plus a lot of religious zeal. I'm not taking, you know, I'm not minimizing that. And thousands of crusaders are marching to conquer Jerusalem from the Muslim infidels. Horrible time for the Jews. This is along the way they decide why wait to do God's work when they get to the Holy Land. And thousands of Jews are killed, burnt alive in synagogues when they refuse to convert. They come to Israel, and the first time they finally see their dream coming true, they're here looking at Jerusalem. See Jerusalem in the distance. Look at the ecstasy. Look how they're, you know, bowing down. And it really expresses the emotion. These people have been, you know, traveling. This is their place. That's where they're going to. Unfortunately, they do get to Jerusalem, kill every Jew and every Muslim in sight. It takes a long time till the community rebounds, not until the time of the Ramban, who gets here 1270, about 1260, 1270, and he reestablishes the community in Yerushalayim when there are 2 Jews living in the entire city. I'm sure you know that story as well from his letter to his son back in Spain. So this is the Crusader era begins. Now the Crusaders knew when they came here that they, most of them pillaged, took whatever they could and went home. Those who stayed had to build very strong fortifications to make sure that they were okay against the local population. That's why we have all these amazing Crusader fortresses in Israel, this being one of them. A few years after they built the church here, they came back and rebuilt a huge fortress with walls around it and an amazing, amazing construction. Now notice this area right over here. We're pretty well on the south side now. Notice these doors here, because I'm going to go closer to look at that area. And again, you'll see it when you walk by. This is what we just saw. Notice, no, the top part obviously is not original. Look at the beautiful original stones and how beautifully carved they are, the beautiful door, the lintel. Look also at the channels, the tunnels underneath that are for drainage. We've seen this in a few places. Wherever you have a well-constructed wall, like in Lachish, for example, under the gate, there's a small tunnel like this for water to come out, because the last thing you want is to have a wide channel coming out from the city to drain the water, especially from the top of the hill. And then the enemy can go in through that area. So these are some of the drainage places that are there and very important for and you see the quality of the building, the construction that they had. And the other door right next to it is very cool because the Magen David. And of course, we as guides know that the Magen David was not a Jewish symbol that time period. It's only in the last few hundred years at the time that it is a Jewish symbol. And I always like pointing it out to the people. They get so excited, you know, is it Jewish? And I have to, in that kind of a chance, to explain to them that both this and the swastika are from the Far East, and this has only recently become an important Jewish symbol. And it's kind of cool seeing it on this gate. We continue walking, and we're looking at, again, the incredible Crusader fortification. We're here, when you come to the southwest corner, we're at the place where they're doing the excavation. They did not bring the stones from below. They didn't need to, because you're in the mountaintop, and the excavation is literally mind-boggling. When you think of the tools that they had at the time. Now, what I generally do is I walk down. You can walk down, and you can actually walk along this area. It's wide enough for people to walk. You can walk through, and you can look at all these huge stones. They're halfway to being ready to be served. Now, what they did was they cut the top, they cut the side, they prepare it this way. This stone is already gone. This will be gone, would have been gone soon had they continued, as well as this stone. And you can just look. It really is very impressive to see how well they built and just the quality of the construction. We're now coming to the southwest corner. This is the part of the, you're looking already at this bottom part around it. Look at the dome here. This area was all open, and here this was used for storage and for living quarters for the Crusaders. And this was the base because the wall, the glacis, started here and the wall went around. In the distance we see Beit Iksa, but we'll talk about that a little later. So this is the southwest corner. And here I'm showing you something else. Now this is not found in this area. I'm sure many of you will recognize it. This is the burial site from Ketef Hinnom, right next to the Begin Museum. Why am I showing you this? Because it's very important to understand this is the first temple tomb. Remember, this is where the heads are, one person, another head, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. This is where they found, by the way, the Birkat Kohanim in the middle when all the stuff was thrown in. But this, without any doubt, is the first temple burial site, very typical. And why am I showing you here Ketef Hinnom? Because unfortunately, I can't take you to this place. But when you come, and this is where we saw the excavations when they were digging it out. If you continue along the western side, you see this hole right over here? You walk down, you look into this hole, and you will see a tomb just like the one that I just showed you. Beit Rishon, no question. You see the place for the heads, etc. Which means that this must have been just outside the village. The village must have ended somewhere further here, because we know that generally they did not bury people inside villages. Tuma Tahara, very important concept, and generally they were not inside the area. If you're standing here, what you don't see here in these pictures, there's a beautiful recreation of the side entrance going into it. And if you're there, you can clearly see, it shows you, this picture shows you very clearly what the side of the huge Crusader fortress looks like. So we're continuing, we're going all the way along the western side. We're continuing now to the western side of the thing. Now you see people standing here. You can see where the tree is. You can see how much higher the terrain was before they dug this area. And what are they looking at? Let me show you what they're looking at. It is absolutely beautiful. One of the most loveliest little springs you're going to see. It's a natural spring. They call it the Spring of Hana, Mayan Hana. And I'm just giving you a word of warning. Before you go down there to the place to see it, call out and say, anybody there? I'm not joking. A lot of Breslovers, a lot of young people go there to go to the mikveh. I didn't do that once, and it was extremely embarrassing both for me, for the tourists, and for the people there. So I'm very careful. I always call to avoid embarrassment. Now, I just said it's called Mayan Hana, right? Now, where was Hana? Hana comes from her Ephraim, her and Elkanah, her husband. Where is she praying for a baby? Back in Shiloh. This is not where Hana is. She's not in the mitzvah. So what is the connection of Hana to this thing? Why was she here? 100% no. She was never here. The only reason this name Hana is because the connection to Shmuel Hanavi, who later prayed there. So I remember I was there and told you about this Amos, the guy that works there for Shuta Teva. So I said to him, but how long has this been the name? He said, oh, I gave it the name. I said, oh, okay. He gave the name and it stayed, and now people will tell you this is Mayan Hana, which shows you how often things begin and where, how names start occurring. Maybe in 100 years, they'll tell you Hana was here, because definitely where she went to the mikveh before she had Shmuel Hanavi. So take it with a grain of salt and just remember how this was named. We're continuing along the western side. And we saw this before already, some more of the Crusader stuff. And here we see some of the amazing Crusader construction once again. This area is on the western side. This total area has been cleared out to bedrock. Look at the huge area. It's now, we're now on the eastern side. This was the western side that they fixed. And aside from clearing it and being able to use it for various industries and stables, etc., which we'll see in a minute, this also forms a great moat. Now we know that in Europe, all the moats had water. In Israel, the only moat that had water is the one in the old city, because the water naturally came down to the area. But otherwise, all moats in Israel are dry, but they still are very good to help in securing the area and protection. And if you go a bit further towards the northern side, we all are familiar with this picture. The moat continues here. And this is the gate that goes, when you come in the entrance, you walk along this gate, and that's when you go to the synagogue and the mosque that are on the other side, and enables us to go across. So the modern gate to go over the Crusader moat. If you look at this is the same thing, but from the other side. You see this large area, and this probably was used as stable. So you can see here the troughs for water. At first, some people suggest that these are also troughs, but they're very deep. And a better interpretation I heard that this is actually for a different industry. For example, the dyeing industry would it need bigger troughs to be able to put things in there. And we also found other industry as well. So this area was cleared out and used for industry, for stables, for water, and other things as whatever they want to use them for. This picture I'm showing you for one reason only. This is the bottom part. The part we just saw was over here. Look over here. You see this area, very flat area. Now you can't see here, but there are also two little channels here going towards the end. Now remember this, I'm going to refer to it in a minute, because as we're still on the outside on the perimeter, this is what we come to. We just, Mayan Chana was to the right, we kept walking around the perimeter, and we see this very intriguing wall. You see it's not bedrock, this is bedrock. Here you have a wall that's smooth, and there are three pilasters here. See, 1, 2, 3. Now, pilasters are, when you make them, they're to beautify something that's important. This is pre-Crusader period, and we don't really know what it is. It is connected to this, and let me tell you, I read one theory. It didn't say who the author of that theory is, but it's a very interesting theory, and I want to just offer it. But please remember, it's a theory. I've got nothing to back it up. So in order to understand, or at least to tell you about the theory of what this very beautiful flat wall is, we have to turn around with your back to this wall, and we're looking at the view in front of us to the north. Ramallah to the north. This is El Jib, the Arab village that's there now. And this, of course, is a very good time for us guys to talk about how the Arabs preserve the names. El Jib, Giv'on, just like we have, all the other places that the Arabs, thank goodness, are very conservative and have preserved names for us, and that's helped us identify archaeological sites. So this is the village, and this is the ancient Giv'on. The first time Giv'on appears as an important place, of course, when the Givonim prick Yehoshua, he's not allowed to make treaty with anybody nearby. They come with old bread and old clothes, tell them we're far away, and after he swears to them he won't harm them, that's when we find that they're from Giv'on, and they become Shavei Mayim v'chotzvei etzim, but they live and they stay here. It's not the story I want to talk about. The story I want to talk about is the other story, and that's when the Mishkan is here. We know that after the Aron was taken from Shiloh to battle, and we'll talk about that story soon, very soon after, we don't know exactly when, but Shiloh is attacked and destroyed. Obviously, that happens before the Aron comes back to Beit Shemesh, because they don't take it back to Shiloh, which they would have had Shiloh existed. Plus, in excavations in Shiloh, we did find a layer of ashes and burning that shows us that this was the time Shiloh was destroyed. This is the only time when the Mishkan and the Aron are separated. The Aron is taken by Plishtim, and then when David HaMelech, after it's brought up to Kriyat Yarim, David HaMelech brings it to Yerushalayim, and it stays in going Arav Nahar Yevusi until the Mikdash is built and it enters Beit HaMikdash. The Mishkan goes to Nov and goes to Giv'on. It's not where the Aron is. Very important distinction here. Who comes here? Shlomo HaMelech. Remember, he's 12 years old. He becomes king. He needs some assistance. He goes to the Mishkan here, and as he prays to God, God says, what do you want? And the story goes, he says, I want wisdom. And God says, because you want wisdom, you'll get wisdom and riches and power. And this is where it is. And he brings a lot of sacrifices on the Bama in Giv'on. Why am I telling you all this? Because there are those that say this is the Bama. It overlooks Givon. You can see it clearly from them. Bama is a high place. It's a higher place overlooking Givon. I showed you the area on top that is flat and the channels that lead here, which could have been the channels for the blood and for the water cleaning it afterwards. And this is, people took a lot of trouble to make this, to make it beautiful. So maybe it is. I don't know, but it's a good chance to discuss the story of Givon, the story of Shlomo. And the only thing I would caution you is please tell your tourists, this is a theory, not sure, but it could certainly have happened here because it was definitely in this area that this story took place. And now we're ready to, we've made our circle, we've completed it, and now we're ready to go inside. I'm sorry, this again, we saw this Givon already. We're able to go into the building itself. And I'm not showing you all the pictures, I'm just showing you the synagogue that's in the basement. Now, this synagogue is probably in the crypt of the church. It was there. When I first came here, this was not here. There was no division, men and women. Now it's divided. There's the machitza. And that's what it looks like today. And we have to spend a couple of minutes just talking about the importance of Shmuel here. And basically what I do with many people, depending on who it is I learn a bit of the plakim that talk about when this place comes on the map and what makes it a significant place from then until today. I'm not going to read all the plakim with you, way too long. I just underlined a few things and highlight the important things that you want to learn. Plishtim, this is how Shmuel are going to fight against the Jews. Nebi Shiloh is the center, and the camp Al Even HaEzel. Remember that name, very important. Plishtim are in effect. You're talking about where the Yarkon emerges. That's the area they're in. Even HaEzel is a Jewish place on the mountain facing Afek. They go to battle, total defeat for the Israelites, about Arba Alafim ish, 4,000 are killed. They say, why did we lose? We need God's help. How are we going to get God's help? They're going to get the Aron from Shiloh. And they go to Shiloh. Eli, with great reluctance, gives them the Aron and sends his son with. And Plishtims are petrified. Jews are thrilled. And what happens? They lose again. But 30,000 people are killed. The Aron is taken captive. The sons of Eli are killed. And we all know that story. You've seen the movie in Shiloh when he comes, how he falls back from the chair when he hears the worst part, not the fact that the Jews lost and his sons were killed. The Aron was taken. He obviously has a stroke, a heart attack, and he falls back, breaks his neck, and he dies. Meanwhile, the Plishtim take the Aron from Even HaEzel and they take it to Ashdod. That's when they put it in front of the Dagon. The next morning it's on the floor, take it up. The next morning it's on the floor again, and this time the impact broke the hands and the head. Obviously, very important symbol. The head, your thinking, your hands, action. And at the same time, a terrible epidemic. The epidemic spreads. So what do? They send their own to their good friends in God. Let them worry about the epidemic. The plague goes there, and they send it on to Ekron, where there's a very famous story about they make the Agalah Hadashah. They take 2 cows that are nursing, and they keep their babies, their calves in the barn, and they put the Aron on the wagon, let them go, and they say if they do it as normal and they go back to nurse their calves, it was coincidence. If not, obviously this came from God. I have to tell you a very quick little story here that I love. Do you remember Natan Edelman? The old timers might remember him. He was in Revadim. He was a kibbutznik there who was the first to discover that this was an important tale. He brought Trudy Dotan. They did the dig there, spent many, many years there, and it turns to be that was Ekron HaPlishti. And we were there, the tour guide course, and he was the one guiding us there. And he told us that they couldn't go to the fields. And remember the Plishti street in Ekron, across from where the museum used to be? They brought their wine press and olive press and all kinds of things to show what Ekron looked like because the fields were not accessible. And he wanted to make a wagon. So he did all the research, how big there were cows, how big, how big to make it, how much could a cow carry or pull, and he had approximate weight of the cows, how much they could pull, and he built a wagon to more or less be able to have the size of the weight of the aron that he figured through all these months of calculations. And then a group of yeshiva kids, little boys, grade 2 boys, came over, and he was very proud as he was showing them the aron, the agalah that he built, and saying how he figured it out. And he sees the teacher is standing in the back and going like, what? And he says, what? Did I do something wrong? Did I not do it correctly? And the teacher looks at him and says, yeah, but why do you have to bother? It says the aron was by 1.5. Just read what it says in the scriptures. And he says, I felt like such a total idiot, but after checking it, I felt much better because I was very close on and I really had the right size. So that's just a little aside. He was an amazing guy, and I always like to talk about him when I go there. He did an amazing job with the Quran. That was total aside, and with Nebi Samuel, but talking the Agalah. So the Agalah takes the aron back, and and it goes back to Beit Shemesh. Now, the question that all the Mefarshim talk about is why in the world did the Jews lose the battle? They're asking for the aron. It's normal. I mean, it should be natural. They're asking for Hashem's help. He should help them. Not only did they lose, but their aron is taken. And we Jews have to be patient because sometimes it takes a long time to get an answer. And the person answering it is Yirmiyahu Hanavi. Very beautiful Perik and very famous Perik. He's at the end of Beit Rishon. The people at that point under Tzidkiyahu are rebelling. And they're saying, no problem, we'll be fine. We've got the temple. Remember, the temple had never yet been destroyed. So they're saying, this is going to be fine. We're going to be great. And he makes fun of them. And he says, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem. You can scream temple, temple, temple all you want. As long as you're not doing mishpat, as long as you're not taking care of the ger, yatom, and the almanah, it's not going to work. You're going to lose. Hashem is not going to help you. And you say, don't believe me? Go back to Shiloh. That's the place where the aron was taken from. Look what I did to Shiloh. Look what happened to the aron from Shiloh. What did the Jews do at that point? What they did was say the aron is going to help us. The mikdash is going to help us. And he says, it doesn't help. You're looking at inanimate objects. The aron is not helping. The mishkan, the Beit HaMikdash is not helping. It's how you behave that affects the outcome and not items that you trust. And who understood that? Shmuel did. And that's exactly what we see in the next paragraph. Shmuel gathers all the people here to the mitzvah. And he says, first of all, let's do tshuva. They take water, they vayatsumu, they fast, they pray, chatanu LaHashem, and he judges them in the mitzvah. When that's over, the prayer and the tshuva, they go out of the mitzvah, they are the fourth plishtim vayakum. They totally conquer the plishtim, at which point Shmuel takes a large stone and calls it and sets it there as a memorial, Even HaEzel. Remember Even HaEzel? That was the place where the Jews were in the first time when they left for battle and they lost the battle. And there's no question, there's very strong parallel drawn here to help to explain, which Yirmiyahu explains much more clearly to us, why they lost and why they won, that's their deeds. Remember when we start out with the very first map and the saying in the book of Maccabees, that this has always been a place of prayer? Shmuel Hanavi makes it a place of prayer. And it becomes associated with going to pray there before battle. And 700, 800 years later, you're talking Shmuel's 3,000, 160, 850 years later, Jews still consider this a place of prayer. And they come back here before they go to battle because they want to win. So this place is Shmuel Hanavi, and obviously the impression that was made then lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years. And until today, it's still a very important aspect. Okay, we're going to jump now. We're going back. We're going all the way to today. What you're looking at is a picture of Ramot 6. And this is the rest of Ramot is over here. Huge area. There is Yerushalayim. You can see very clearly. Ramot has now about 60,000 people, very large community, and they're building nonstop. I live here, and I'm telling you, the construction is like over. It's too much at some points, but Baruch Hashem that we have the construction. What you don't see is this area over here, which is Bet Iksa, and you know Bet Iksa, the word X10. This is the site of the 10th Roman Legion after they conquered the temple. And you see here, you have the road going out of Yerushalayim, you barely see it, but over here is the road towards Tel Aviv. Now, what we have to remember is where this place is from 1948 to 67. If you're standing here looking at Ramot, there's a little shed there, and to the left, you're going to see a whole channel dug out, which is basically where the Jordanians dug that in preparation for attack from the Jews should we attack. This whole area was Jordan from 1948 to 1967. When Abba Eban said we have Auschwitz borders in Israel, there was the borders pre-67. Here, Jordanians are sitting, there is Jerusalem, and the road literally is under the guns of the Jordanians, just like Netanya was 10 minutes from the Jordanian border. This is the area we're at. Now, we knew this was going to be a problem, and we knew that Nebi Samuel is a very important strategic place, and therefore in the War of Independence, there was a tremendous effort to try and capture it. And I want to tell you the story of this young man who was one of the heroes in the 1948 battle. We know that Rabin was stationed in Kiryat Anavim. His job in the Palmach group was to try and keep the Tel Aviv-Yerushalayim road open. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And Poza, Chaim Poznansky, Poza was one of the most important military leaders that he had. If you go to the cemetery in Kiryat Anavim, he is one of the people buried there. At this picture, he's 20 years old. He's been in the Palmach for 4 years, and by the time he's 20, he's one of the most important, charismatic leaders that are leading the Palmach units in general. What happens that night? There are a lot of different versions, but they start what's called Mitzah Yevusi. They're called Yevusi because remember the Yevusis lived in Yerushalayim before David HaMelech. David conquers it, and they're hoping to conquer Yerushalayim. So the focus is not only Yerushalayim, but all the terrain leading to Yerushalayim. But Iksa was going to be under attack, and of course Nebi Samuel, because it is so strategic. It's very high, it overlooks Yerushalayim, it's on the way to Yerushalayim, and they want to conquer it. It doesn't go well. They come, when they reach that night, they probably got there a bit too late. Plus, the people, the Arabs at Bet Iksa realize that they're being attacked, and because it's so close to Nebi Samuel, the Jordanians at Nebi Samuel have a head start. They realize what's going on. They prepare for the battle. And when Poza, who is the leader of the group, gets there, you see it's a big problem. He gets a message on the radio: cancel, abort the mission. He turns off the radio and he goes ahead to attack, and he says, this place is so important. They want to try and save us. We have to make an effort to capture it. It's too important not to do so. Tragic results. He is killed. Over 40 of the Pamachniks in that battle are killed. And that night, they're brought back. You're talking April 22, 23. That year, Yudalid Nisan, it's Erev Pesach, and they bring the bodies back to Kiryat Anavim while they're having the Seder. They put the bodies in the barn. They don't have enough graves to bury them. And it's one of the worst tragedies that befalls that group there. And from that point on, whenever they went out to battle, they would leave a couple of guys behind to dig the tombs so that if they knew they'll come back with some casualties, this will never happen again. They have to put bodies in a barn and wait until they dig out the bodies. Now, this young man, Poza, I want to read to you what another very important soldier said about him. Know who this is? Okay, you can't answer me. This is Rafu, young Raphael Eitan, who was very involved in the War of Independence, and then stayed in the army for almost the rest of his life, becoming the Ramat Gal eventually. And we know to be an exceptionally brave soldier. and a man who was very reticent. He barely spoke. He did a lot, but did not speak a lot. And when he wrote a book, this is 32 years after the War of Independence, and look at what he writes about Posa. I'm just going to translate. The most praise-deserving person of all, from every respect, is Posa, the commander in the Palmach. Posa was the perfect combination of I've ever met of leadership, personal example, tremendous military knowledge, and exceptional bravery. And he says, we were young, but I'll never forget him as long as I live. He was a great warrior. He was as handsome as a Greek statue. He never asked anybody to do anything that he was not willing to do himself. He loved the land of Israel with all his might. He never had to say the words, Acharai, follow me. He didn't need to. He would walk ahead and people followed. And listen to this incredible statement from Raful, who has been in the army for 30 years, who must have met every important person in the war. And he says, Af Adam shikartiv ma'az, no one that I've ever met since has impressed me as deeply as this man. I worshipped him without any, nothing held back. This is 32 years after. Now, again, to add a story, the person, I heard Moshe Choromatz from the field school in Bet Meir talk, and he told us that he actually heard Raful, way before he died, he was a young man at the time, Moshe Choromatz, talk about this, give a talk, and he mentioned how he worshipped this Posa. And he raised his hand and he said, I don't understand. He may have been a great leader, but he went against orders. He was told not to go ahead and fight. He is responsible for the 40 men who were killed. I mean, don't you think that was the wrong decision to make? And Moshe Choromatz told us he'll never forget this. Raful looks at him, and I'm quoting, he said to him, Ata yeled katan v'tipesh. He says, you don't understand what Posa was. Posa was the ultimate soldier. Whatever he did lishma. And if you're saying that you don't understand the situation, you don't understand what was there. And as I said, yeled katan v'tipesh. He says, I was really put in my place, but I thought it was worth asking. That was 1948. We didn't make it. Nebi Samuel stayed in Jordanian hands until 1967, the miraculous Six-Day War. I'm not going to go into the battle here because we're not one of the major battles here, but it was conquered as well. And as soon as they conquered it, this place was fixed up. Half of it stayed as a mosque. Till today, that's the situation. You're better off not going there Friday morning, so it's harder to get in. Any other day is fine. The rooftop is one of the most beautiful places for observations of the entire area, seeing all the way down to the Shfela, to see Yerushalayim, to see the north. You can talk about so many things when you go up there because so much of Yerushalayim in the north and the west and the east are all visible. The shul is down there. A lot of people daven there. And it's kind of nice. Whenever you go there, there's always somebody there. And I like the fact that everybody goes there. It's nice, it's peaceful. And there's so far coexistence there, more or less, as much as can be. And everybody has their area. And that's basically it. I'm done. And if there are any questions, Judy, I didn't really look. If you want to, I don't know how to see the
Ruchama, if you close your screen share, you'll be able to see the chats.
All right, let me close it. Hold on. Pause share. Stop share, right? Okay. All right. Now, where do I see the questions?
Look down at the chats.
Okay, hold on. Chat. Okay. All right. Read the story and compare. Oh, just a second. Why did you choose? They're moving so quickly. Hold on, let me just go back to the top again and go one by one. Just a second. Okay, you got the volume. I hope it was okay. Shmuel Bet is buried there, okay. The source and quote for the Sultan. If you don't do me a favor afterwards, whoever wants the quotes and the stuff, I'm more than happy to share. I will look for it. I think the person who says that is El Mukadasi in 985. I'll have to find where it comes from. I just copied the quote and I did not write down where it came from, but I'll find it and I will send it to somebody. Why does she reach a higher level than the doors that were later blocked? There are two stories, there are two floors. There's the doors that I showed you is, it's a hill. So the road goes on the higher part, and then the entrance to the house is from the road, but then the other side, the second floor, is the exit out because it goes downhill. And that's where the doors are a lower place than the other ones. Amos Tal, thank you, Adina. Adina was with me then when we spoke to Amos, and he was, I'm sure she'll tell you as well how wonderful he was. How to get a picture in the men's section, don't ask, not telling. Okay, the photo of the Bama. I'll be happy to send it to whatever it is. Whoever wants it, not a problem. Okay, how to use the camera. Boy, the big discussion is how I got a picture of the men's side. Boy, okay. Why they lose the battle? I gave the answer. That's because, as I mentioned, the fact that they were not just the fact that Eli's son were doing something wrong. It's the fact that the Jews didn't understand what they were saying. What they were saying is that we want the Aron. We don't have to change our behavior. All we need is the Aron with us. It's like having, an idol. The idol is going to save us. And that's what both Yirmiyahu and Shmuel try and teach them, that the artifacts don't save. You have to imbue them with meaning, and then they become holy. But by themselves, if you don't imbue them with meaning, they're meaningless and they don't help. And that's why Eben Ha'ezel is both times, so that people should be able to draw that comparison. Mitzvah tel natzbe aram. I couldn't, you're right. I did not go into great detail into the between mitzvah and this, what the difference is. That's a whole lecture in itself. You have to go through the stuff. I read both. There is an argument that is mitzvah, but it worked much better to have mitzvah as Nebi Samuel, so I picked that. If it's 100% accurate, I'm not sure, but there are enough people that support it that I thought that was in safe ground following that. What else is there? The Am Yisrael and the Plishtim view the ark. There's no difference between them. You're right. The Plishtim look at it as an idol, just as the Jews do. It's true. I agree with what you wrote. It's true. Why did you choose? Okay. From what I looked, I saw that most people chose this as the mitzvah and as Nebi Samuel. Okay, so I mentioned about the two battles. Both are in Shmuel. Both battles are in Shmuel. The first one they lost and they brought the Aron. The second one they do tshuva, the mitzvah, and they win. What else? That's not a question. What else? I think that's it. There are no more. Any other questions somebody wants to ask? You can ask them verbally, if anybody wants to say anything. I'll be more than happy to answer. If not, Judy, we're going to miss it until next Sunday.
Ruchama, this was wonderful. Thank you so very much. It was very enlightening. I think it's incredible about the whole idea that the Bama was there.
And I love that theory. And again, even if it's not 100% true, it could be. It's definitely possible, and also gives you a chance to discuss something out in the Tanakh with people who love learning the Tanakh. So it works both ways.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
That was great.
See you on Sunday.
Happy